Hello and welcome to the podcast It's a Mad World. I'm your host, Reagan Connelly, and today's story is honestly a pretty tough one for me to talk about. It's an article from the Washington Examiner titled San Francisco Demands Teachers Confuse Children About Their Gender. It is written by Zachary Faria. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Let's just jump right in because it's a mess. This story is about a teaching manual that has come out in the San Francisco school district that is telling teachers to tell their students that it's, quote, normal to explore and be curious about their gender, end quote, and, quote, gender identity is determined by the way we feel inside, end quote. Already, there is such a host of issues with this. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. First of all, biology is biology, and it really doesn't care about how you feel. To answer Matt Walsh's very famous question, a woman is an adult human who has X and X chromosomes and has the ability to give birth. Like, by their nature, they give birth, have two X chromosomes, and no Y chromosomes. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. I learned this at a very young age, and it is incredibly disturbing to me that basic biology is now being thrown out the window for this absolute nonsense. Like, on what planet does any of this make any sense? The new policy also urges teachers to begin social transition as soon as possible after the child, quote, comes out. Meaning the teachers are encouraged to start calling little Jimmy little Sarah because little Jimmy says, sometimes I feel like a girl. And honestly, kids wouldn't even be thinking this if we didn't tell them to think it. Just think about it logically for a second. How on earth did the number of transgender children jump so high? Anyone who has spent like 5 seconds around a kid can tell you that they just say what they think. They don't hold back. They don't know to have a filter. They just say stuff. So kids being what they are, small humans that just say stuff and have no filter, one would think we would have at the very least, more anecdotal data of kids coming out as transgender from like the beginning of time. This would be like a normal thing forever. It wouldn't be a new phenomenon. It's because kids don't think like this. I remember being a little kid, and for those of you who don't know me in real life, I tended to, and I still do, tend to think more like a boy than a girl on things. I see things as very black and white. It is what it is, and I can't read your mind, so why are you trying to make it? Of course, I still have my feminine tendencies. You know, I do want my man to read my mind, and I do want people to know how I feel, and I do express my emotions a lot. But I do tend to view the world in a much more boyish way. And my mom would say this stuff to me all the time. She would say, well, you tend to act more like a boy than a girl sometimes. But the thing is, we understood way back in the old days of 2008 that a 6-year-old could have more boyish tendencies and still be a girl. And now here I am, almost all grown up, almost 21 years old, and I love wearing flouncy frilly dresses. I love glitter. I love sparkles. I want so much to be pretty and feminine, and there's nothing more I want in life than to be a mother. All of those things are quote-unquote girly things. And if we had decided back when I was a little kid and going around with the brain of one of my brothers that made me a boy, I would be a miserable person because I wouldn't be me. And to be perfectly honest, I like me. And I know that this is a point a lot of people have made. I just also wanted to make this point because I think it's a good point. The new policy also dictates that parents only need to be notified when discussing puberty, STI, HIV prevention, and sexual health. And the author points out that this is just notified, and it says nothing about requiring permission from the parents to talk about these things. I've said it before about 1 million times, I was homeschooled as a kid, and because of that, I did not have sex ed, and that was mostly the reason why I was homeschooled was because middle schoolers, my mom always said middle schoolers are brutal and mean, and she didn't want us getting bullied. but also because sex ed is not something that she wanted us to learn from a teacher. She wanted us to learn it from my parents. We were supposed to learn it the Catholic way, and she wanted us to learn it in a tasteful religious way rather than the clinical medical way they teach it in school. And the thing is that these kids are just that. They are children. And these children are entrusted to their parents. I cannot believe I have to say this, but the parents are the ones who get to decide what a child is exposed to. I mean, when I was a kid, I was allowed to watch The Little Mermaid and Sleeping Beauty and all that stuff. But my best friend wasn't allowed to watch The Little Mermaid because Ariel was indecently dressed. And that was okay. That was what her parents decided was best. And what my parents decided was best was that I was a small child and I wouldn't know the difference. I wouldn't understand that that's not how you should dress. I would just think, ooh, pretty girl with red hair sings and is a mermaid. The article also talks about how, and this is really, really super disturbing to me. This just creeps me out on so many levels. But it says that these two middle school teachers in California had bragged during a California Teachers Association meeting thing. They bragged about monitoring their students' internet activity and recruiting them into transgender clubs without the permission or even knowledge of the students' parents, of course. And that is so disturbing to me because, what really disturbs me about this is that they are looking at these kids' browsing activity and deciding to recruit them into transgender clubs based on that internet activity. I have several questions. First of all, what are these kids looking up that gets them recruited into these clubs? Second of all, how do you even approach a child like that? Oh, I saw that you were looking up hunting videos, and I think that you'd be perfect for the transgender club. If I were a kid and a teacher, came up to me and she was like, Reagan, sweetheart, I noticed that you've been writing a lot of bad poetry and a lot of really dumb short stories. And I noticed that the main characters seem to always be men. I think that you might be a boy and that you should most definitely join the transgender club. I would be so creeped out by that. I'd be like, oh my gosh, are you stalking me, you weirdo? And then I would tell my parents. Because that's weird. That is not normal behavior. That is weird. And third of all, when I was in school, and mind you, I'm not that old. I only graduated 3 years ago. But when I was in school, when I signed up for theater and when I signed up for speech and when I signed up for track, I had to have my parents sign off on it. How is this not a thing, especially in bigger schools? The manual also teaches teachers on how to answer questions about porn, masturbation, and other things I don't want to say because I think my mom listens to this podcast and I don't want her to wash my mouth out with soap. A tweet from Christopher Rufo discussing this whole thing shows screenshots of training scenarios in which a child asks the teacher questions such as, how do gay people have sex and what is porn? First of all, I'm so sorry, Mom, that I said that. Please don't disown me. I love you very much. Second of all, I worked at an elementary school for 3 years, okay? I was even a favorite among the students. They all came up to me with all of their weird random questions because they knew I always had the answers and they knew I was going to be honest with them. Never once, out of all the weird questions I got from little kids, never once was I asked anything remotely similar to these. Because kids don't think like this. Never once has a kid come up to me saying, I think I'm a girl or I think I'm a boy when they're clearly not. Never in the whole history of the world did a child come up to me and say, Miss Reagan, how do gay people do the deed? They don't know what that is. And they especially don't know what pornography is. And if they did, I would report that to my boss and be like, this kid is in an unhealthy home because no child under the age of 15 should know what that is. And I know that our culture has completely plummeted into this deplorable and dark space where people know that by middle school, but they really, really shouldn't. No child should know what that is, and so no normal, well-adjusted child would be asking these things unless some adult had said something to them about it. And if an adult is talking to a small child about gay sex and pornography, then that person needs to be locked up, because that is just, I don't have words for how screwed up that is. More tweets from Christopher Rufo also claim that sex ed teachers will now use the term, quote, people with insert genitalia name here, because again, my mom listens to this, I think, and I just really don't want to say those words. It's gross, but you know what I'm talking about. Here's the thing. I am a woman. I am a smart woman. I am a strong woman. And I would even venture to say I am a not bad to look at woman. All of those are who I am. I am not my womb, and I do not appreciate being referred to person with the capacity to give birth, or person with a uterus, or menstruating person, because that is not who I am. And I know I said at the top that that's what a woman is, but that is the basic biological definition of a woman. It is not the definition of me. And I really take offense to the idea that there are people out there who have uteruses and who can give birth who aren't women. And I really take the offense to anyone who slaps on a dress, lipstick, and heels is now a woman. My final thoughts on all of this, and this is not just this school district, but all school districts, the whole teaching kids whatever you want thing. My final thoughts on it are that these are my children. They are extensions of my heart, and you cannot toy with them. Granted, I do not have children yet, but I know how I feel towards my baby sister, who is 9 years old, and it tears me apart thinking of my precious, spunky diva of a baby sister would be sitting in class, if she weren't homeschooled, learning about gay sex, transgenderism, pornography, masturbation, and STDs. She is the most precious, adorable, innocent little child out there. And I might be biased because she's my baby sister and she still curls up on my lap to read books with me. But honestly, if that's the way I feel towards my little sister, I cannot imagine how parents feel towards their own children, their flesh and blood. And it is not up to the teachers to decide what those children should and should not hear. These children are perfect, precious little flowers that God has given to us to cultivate and to nurture and to grow. And honestly, I pray so much for the people who would dare distort that beauty and that innocence, because they are going to spend a long time paying for it. Their souls are on the line for this gender ideology nonsense. And not only are their souls on the line, they're putting these small children's souls on the line. They're corrupting these kids before they ever even have a chance in life. And that breaks my heart. In conclusion, homeschool your children.